Welcome to the TLR Roundtable. Jamie is here. I'm here. Craig could not make it this week. I'm sure he'll be back very soon. Thanks for joining us. Thank you for jumping on here on a Friday, right before the weekend. We're here to kick it off. We'll be here every Friday to do these shows so that you're all prepared for the weekend. So, anybody in the chat, feel free to send your questions. We got a bunch of questions from Discord. We decided to just go straight Discord today. No bad tweets or anything like that. If you find them, still send them in and we'll probably get to them next week. So Jamie and I have a group of questions here. We got 5 that we'll run through. If the chat's got any more questions, we can do that at the very end. Make sure you're subscribed everywhere. Discord is part of our Patreon. So all these people asking questions are in the Discord. So make sure you jump in there. Jamie, on this Friday, how are we feeling?
I feel great, man. Coming off a week 1 win, ready for the weekend. Got lots of softball and flag football going on with the girls, so I'm feeling good. Work is over, ready to talk some football and get the weekend started.
Perfect. Okay. Well, then that's a perfect segue into talking about football. And it's going to be 5 questions from the Discord. And our first one here, as I zoom in so everybody can see it. This one's from Simon Shum 90. He sent in a question. So, little context to this. Jasir Taylor, questionable, and looks like Alohi Gilman will probably not play this weekend. So the question is, do you see Elijah Molden playing this week? If you do you think he starts in the slot or question mark, maybe safety? Do you see him playing this week?
Yeah, I mean, he played last week, so I don't see why he wouldn't play this week. He played towards the end of the game and was part of a pass breakup in the end zone in the fourth quarter, so left his fingerprints on the game a little bit. If Alohi's out and if Taylor is out or limited, I would say, I mean, I think the thing about this secondary right now is that most of these guys are positionless. Outside of the outside corners, a lot of these guys are playing kind of all over the place. So I think you'll see Molden. I don't know that he'll start. You'll probably, I believe, Tarheeb still is ready to go this week.
Yep.
So he's been with the team longer. He was there all through training camp in the preseason. In terms of being quote unquote the starter, it will probably be Still is my guess, but you'll probably see Still and Molden play in the slot a little bit, probably play some safety a little bit, move around to help disguise coverages. I think one of the things that's going to be fun about this defense is they move pieces around and use them creatively, and nobody is pigeonholed into one spot. And I think that's why they brought Molden in, so that they could do that with him as well. So yeah, I think he plays, and he plays some slot and some safety. Probably see more of Derwin in the slot this week than anything else is my guess.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna. You touched on at the very end. Yeah, you're probably gonna see a lot more Derwin in the slot. I do think you're gonna see a lot of Elijah Molden. I think he's gonna be mixed in, especially if Gilman can't play. You're also gonna see some Tarheeb Still, who it was a full go today, so he's healthy this week. You're gonna see them mixed in, and if Jasir Taylor doesn't play and Alohi Gilman doesn't play, you could see Still in the slot. Maybe you see Molden playing some free safety. Maybe you see some AJ Finley mixed in a lot this week. Finley talked about how he was playing nickel dime. He was playing slot corner, free safety, and strong safety in camp. So much like a lot of these other corners that Jamie was talking about, it does feel like they're all kind of chess pieces. They can all be moved around. They're all positionless. And you see AJ Finley walk down and play some slot. You see Still play some slot. Derwin play some slot. Molden plays some slot depending on the package. So I think it's a lot of mix and match. And I do think that Elijah Molden definitely sees some snaps today. I think it has to be an increase with the way Gilman is trending and the way that Jasir Taylor's trending as well. So the answer to your question, do you see Elijah Molden playing this week? The answer is yes. He played last week. So definitely. As a starter, I don't know that you'd give him the starting nod. But I think you'll see him in the slot at times. I do want to say, though, that if Tarheeb Still does start at nickel corner, just as like a little prediction, I think he starts to put the heat on Jasir Taylor a little bit when he comes back. Just seeing Tarheeb Still playing the preseason, he just feels like a guy that is just chomping at the bit and a guy that will earn a spot on the starting defense pretty soon. especially if he balls out Sunday. Now, I'm not saying that Taylor misses a game and still automatically slotted into the starting, slotted into the nickel corner. But what I am saying is that if he does do pretty well, I think that seat gets a little hot for Jasir Taylor, because a guy, not a bad game during game one against the Raiders, but still a guy that's been kind of up and down through training camp, through preseason. It just feels like the kid they drafted higher than most thought, had playing pretty good in the preseason. He might be working his way into a starting slot pretty quickly.
Yeah, and I think one of the hallmarks of Jim Harbaugh, and hit the team the way he runs his teams, is there's always competition, whether it's on the practice field, whether it's on the game field. Um, Everybody is always fighting for time. Everybody is always looking to earn more time, and if you play well, you get that time. So if Still and Molden play well, we'll see more of them. If they don't, we won't. And I think, with Taylor, he's a guy who has been a special team standout, um, but hasn't really necessarily played well when he's been asked to play on defense. And it seems like his special teams prowess is kind of getting him moved up the depth chart, maybe more than he's earned it early on. So he's got to feel some of that pressure breathing down his neck. We're seeing more of Derwin in the slot now. They bring in Molden. They drafted Still. I think there's plenty of opportunity for guys to take reps from him if he doesn't play well. So definitely that's a position to watch this season or this week, and as the season goes on, in terms of competition, because I think that's one where there's a wide open opportunity to earn playing time.
You love the competitors welcome, as Junius was saying in the chat, and then also just the churning of this roster from Ortiz week after week. It feels like every day there's just looking at new possibilities in that roster, and it's a thing of beauty. Finally we're getting what we want, Jamie. It took us
Yes.
a long time, but here we are. All right. Next question number 2. And this one is from Scott S-Man 94. Jesse Minter commented about containing Bryce Young. If you were the defensive coordinator, what would you do to contain Young in the pocket and try to limit scrambles? And no, I'm not a spy. Sweats aggressively. So yes. So the idea that Minter is bringing up is basically Bryce Young does the most damage with his legs, which is absolutely true. If you watched him throw a football, I guess throughout his career, I was going to say this last week, but I guess throughout his whole career, because last week, no touchdowns, 2 picks. He couldn't surpass 200 yards passing in a blowout game against the Saints, who aren't, a top 5 defense. But the reference that I think Scotsman's making is about spies and having, a linebacker spy and have a, linebacker or DB assigned to watch the quarterback when he flees the pocket. That's certainly an aggressive tactic. I think that's what he's talking about. But I think the other important thing, if you are a defensive coordinator, and Jesse Minter and I are look enough alike that I can speak on this, is that another important part is that you have to rush under control. Jamie and I have talked about this. It feels like ad nauseum. It happens every year, depending on who the rushing quarterback is. But it's about rushing under control. The interior linemen and the edge players have got to rush and contain. They cannot attack and leave open lanes. The interior have to have lane discipline. They have to build a wall up front. They can't just rush from side to side, leave a hole in the middle, and have Bryce Young run through it. And then on the edge, it's obviously about containing Young. They can't get caught too wide or caught too far inside where Bryce Young can go around. So, every rusher up front, from the interior defensive line to the edge rushers, have to be mindful of their depth. They have to rush under control, and they have to have lane discipline. So that's going to force Bryce Young to throw the football. You have to limit. Hopefully that helps limit the rushing opportunities. If you've got a spy at the second level, it's even better. But we've talked about this before, but it's definitely a sound strategy if you're going against a guy like Bryce Young.
Yeah. So containment is all about discipline, like Garrett said, right? It's all about, you want to collapse the pocket from the inside out. You don't want to get caught moving too far upfield on the edges and give escape routes. I think something that Saints did really well last week was they hit the Panthers really hard with a lot of slot blitzes. They were coming off the edge. They were coming through the A and B gaps. The Panthers were not prepared for it. They could not stop it. And Young had no answers. He was not identifying them. He was not responding to them well. And he was just getting stuck in the pocket and taking a beating. And what I noticed too is, Bryce Young is listed at 5'10. Listed at 5'10. I don't think he's actually 5'10. I think he has a lot of trouble literally seeing over his offensive lineman. He needs some pretty wide gaps to be able to see the field. And so what happens is he has to move around. He has to take deeper drops. And you have to be mindful of that. But what I noticed this weekend is if he had to move his feet, his accuracy was all over the place.
Mhm.
Ball placement was terrible. He was overthrowing people left and right. I mean, balls 10, 15 feet over guys' heads in the middle of the field, throwing high and late. The first thing you learn not to do in the NFL. He could not complete a pass on the move for a guy who is, supposed to be mobile and athletic. The idea of extending and creating plays in the passing game with his legs really isn't there. He can run, but once you make him move around in the pocket, he's pretty much done. The arm talent just isn't there, in my opinion. So I think you pin him in the pocket, you mix in those slot blitzes, really push the pocket from the inside out, get some stunts and twists going to get guys upfield in the A and B gaps. And I think what you'll see is he'll be kind of deer in headlights. He'll get stuck. He won't be able to move. He's not going to see guys coming, and he's just going to take hits. This week is not so much about getting to Bryce Young as it is about making him feel like you're getting to him. Make him hold on to the ball, change the tempo of the game, make him speed things up, then slow him down, make him make good decisions and good throws. You're going to get opportunities for turnovers. You just are.
Yep. As long as they stay disciplined, this should not be a hard game for this Chargers defense. And I chuckled inside. Well said, Bizarro Minter. I like that. Okay. Question number 3 here, which is a good transition, I think. This is from J-Man the Jason. Do you have a revised take on the win and loss following week 1? We received this question a couple times. So to make it easy, here's the Charger schedule. Let's go down the list from week 1 to week 18. Obviously, week 1 is done, and they got a win. So started off right, 1-0. Jamie, we kind of started to talk about this Panthers offense and how they move a little bit. How do you feel week 2 goes?
I think they beat the Panthers. It's probably going to be kind of ugly and muddy again like it was last week. I think in the end, they wind up stretching the lead and they win by 2 scores or more. I just don't think the Panthers are very good. They're installing a whole new system, a whole new culture. They have a first-time head coach who's learning the ropes on the fly. They have a quarterback who's still very much a project and learning how to do things as a professional. I think with the defense, they're going to be able to create a lot of problems for Bryce Young. And if they're able to contain Miles Sanders and stop the run like they did last week, I don't think they'll have too much trouble with the Panthers.
Yeah, I got this as a win as well. And I feel like this is one of those games where the Chargers defense starts to deliver a real message with this game, that they are for real. And if the Saints could do what they did last week to the Panthers, it just feels like with how the defense played against the Raiders, just feels like now you start to think like, hey, this defense might be pretty good, even against a bad team. But they'll show that they're a bad team by being so good defensively. So I've got them winning that game. Let's go on to week 3. They're going to be playing in Pittsburgh. This feels like one of those games, like on the road, it's going to be a lot like the Raiders game where it's kind of close early, but the Chargers are going to end up pulling away. They just don't have the quarterback play to win this game, I don't think. So I got them starting out 3-0.
Yeah, I think this is going to be a tough one. I think it's probably going to wind up being lower scoring, kind of a knockdown, drag out, both sides trying to run the ball and control the ball kind of a thing. And it's going to come down to which defensive line is able to take over the line of scrimmage, I think. I don't know how good the Steelers actually are. I don't know that their win last weekend is reflective of a team that's, playoff bound or is going to win 10, 12 games or whatever. But I do think they have the ability, because they're so well coached and so established in terms of culture. I think they have the ability to drag people down into the deep end with them and make things difficult. So I think the Chargers probably win that one, but I think it's a lot more difficult than people think. I think it's low scoring and very. It'll test their physical and mental toughness a lot, like the Raiders tried to do in Week 1.
Yep. I absolutely agree. Okay, so we both have them going 3-0, and then they play at home against the Chiefs. Jamie, how you feeling?
I think they probably lose this one. I hate to say it, but I don't know that their first 3 games are going to get them ready for the Chiefs. And I think they're still going to be working out some kinks in terms of, getting plays in, getting lined up, just getting the offense going. And the Chiefs are so well coached and so well gelled, and they've been playing together and doing it at such a high level for so long that I think early in the season, the Chiefs have an advantage over the Chargers, who are just installing so many new things. Um, I think the Chiefs probably win this one.
I do too. Well, we talk about it every year, but the first 4 games are kind of a feeling out process of trying to find your identity and who you are as a football team. When you've got a team that's been together forever, outside of adding a few pieces here or there, they normally have the advantage. And for the Chargers, it's whole new coaching staff, system, concepts from top to bottom. So I feel like the Chargers probably jump out early in this game, maybe take an early lead, get confident, but I feel like the Chiefs end up pulling away late. So I've got them losing this game against Kansas City. So we've got them 3-1 going into the bye in week 5. Then they head to Mile High. They play the Chiefs or the Broncos in week 6. And even though it's normally a really tough game in Mile High, Bo Nix, I feel like at this point is going to be in contention for the NFL's worst starting quarterback by this point in the season. He looked absolutely terrible. And I feel like Harbaugh has them ready after the bye. And then when you're going up against such an inexperienced quarterback, I feel like, a guy like Harbaugh is going to just feast on that bye week and really bury the Broncos. Normally, I would say, this would be a really, really tough game. I just don't think it'll be that bad with Bo Nix at quarterback.
Yeah, I agree. I don't particularly like Bo Nix. I haven't seen their game from Sunday, but I've heard he did not play very well.
Oh.
I don't think they're very good. And in spite of Sean Payton being their head coach, I'm not sure how well coached they are right now. So I agree. I think Harbaugh and Minter and Roman take advantage of the bye week, and they come out ready to go, and they probably put one on the Broncos pretty easily. Probably force several turnovers, maybe get a defensive touchdown, and make it look pretty easy.
Yeah. Okay. So then after we both have them beating the Broncos in Mile High, they go to Arizona and play the Cardinals for Monday Night Football, Jamie.
I'm not sure how good the Cardinals are. I know they got off to a big lead on Sunday and wound up blowing it. This feels like a win to me. It feels like it should be a win. Normally, I would say I could see the Chargers coming off maybe a potentially big win over the Broncos, being overconfident and playing down to the level of the Cardinals. I don't think Harbaugh lets that happen. I feel like they're ready to go, and they probably win this game.
Okay. I feel like there's always a game the Chargers should win and they end up losing. And I feel like this is one of those. It's on the road in prime time. They just beat the Broncos in Mile High, which is normally a big feat, but now they're feeling a little bit down. And it feels like Kyler Murray's getting further and further away from his major injury, and he's getting more healthy. And I feel like we'll start to see shades of Kyler Murray return to what he used to be and try to push this Cardinals team to a playoff spot. I know it's early in the season still, but I just feel like Kyler takes over this game on Monday Night Football at home, and the Chargers kind of fall flat after a big win against Denver. So I got them. I'll have them losing this game in Week 7 in a game that should be winnable.
So I think the only thing I would say to that is
this is not Telesco or Staley's team anymore.
This is not Mike McCoy and Anthony
Yeah.
Lynn and Staley.
He's-
I don't I don't see how Harbaugh lets that happen. And I think we're so conditioned to that
Mm.
letdown on prime time, that we're maybe being persuaded to think that it still happens even though things have changed drastically.
Mhm.
And I think, to me, we talked about this on Sunday with the Raiders game, is the Raiders punched them in the mouth several times early in that game. And that was a game where the old Chargers would have folded up like a cheap suit and rolled
Mhm.
over and played dead in the second or third quarter and got blown out. And they didn't do that. They wound up taking the game over and being the more physically and mentally tough team. And they persevered because of that toughness. And I just don't know. I don't know if the Cardinals have it in them to take that out of the Chargers. So I have a hard time. I have a hard time seeing Harbaugh letting that happen. I could be wrong. It could be a letdown game, but I don't know that we can let history influence that call because of how much things have changed.
Okay. All right. Well, yeah. Well, let's move forward. So you think they're going to win every game that they should win? That's kind of how you're feeling.
Well, I'm sure they'll run out of gas at some point and lose one they
Yeah.
shouldn't win, or they should win. But
Yeah.
this early schedule right now feels like they should be able to take 4 or 5 out of these first 6 games relatively easily.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So I've got them losing. You got them winning. So then they go on to New Orleans, and I mean, I think they end up winning this game. Um, I don't know if it would have changed if it was on the road. I know they put a bunch of points on the Panthers recently, but it just feels like the Chargers have Derek Carr figured out. I don't know that he's, even with a new regime, I feel like they still got him figured out. So I got them winning this game against New Orleans.
I think this could be the one where they trip up.
Okay.
I think the Saints have a pretty good defensive-minded head coach who can put a scheme together to stop the Chargers' offense. I don't know that it'll be a Derek Carr show. Honestly, outside of a long touchdown, I don't think last week was a Derek Carr show. It was just the Panthers suck show.
Mm-hmm.
But this seems like a point where, in some nagging injuries are starting to catch up to the team. They're coming off of Monday Night Football. They have a short week. That's where I feel like it's probably more likely that they lose a game.
Okay. So losing against the Saints in week 8. All right. So we're still about to we're both at 5-2 here. Then they go on the road and they play Cleveland. Jamie?
It feels really, really weird to say this, but I can't see them losing this game.
Yeah.
I think Watson is so bad,
Mm-hmm.
and the Browns are so fucked with him that I have a really hard time seeing them lose this game. I just think Harbaugh and Minter and Roman have a game plan, and they come in and they pound the crap out of the football, and they just run the air and the excitement right out of the Browns, and they run them right off the field. I don't see how the Browns win this game. This is a game that last year I would say, yeah, they probably lose this because it's the Chargers.
Mm-hmm.
But again, I don't think we can say that anymore.
And there were days where these were going to be a shootout, like they're each going to put 30 plus on the board, and whoever's got the football last is going to win. That's kind of how it's been the last couple of years with these guys. But this team on paper seemed pretty good. And then when Deshaun Watson hit the field, it was like all those hopes were gone. So I maybe there's a new quarterback back at this point. The chat, Casey was saying, this could be a new quarterback situation by week 9 for the Browns, which I could see. I mean, Deshaun Watson was terrible. And also he's got more allegations to deal with. And will Nick Chubb be playing? But Nick Chubb came off such a scary injury that I don't know that, this season's really going to turn out to be a Nick Chubb season. I feel like this is a trying to get back to fully healthy season for Nick Chubb. I don't think by this time in week 9 that he's going to be all that effective. If he does return.
Yeah, I agree. It wouldn't surprise me if Watson is dealing with legal issues or suspended or something by the time we get to week 9, just with the way things are going with the allegations. But yeah, I just don't think the Browns are very good. So this should be one that the Chargers win pretty easily, in my opinion.
Yeah, we're talking about Nick Chubb he tore his ACL and had 2 different knee surgeries this offseason. So like week 9, I don't think he's anywhere near the Nick Chubb you're thinking of. Okay, cool. Next up, week 10. How are you feeling about the Titans at all? If at all? Do you not feel
Uh,
good?
I'm not going to pretend that I watched them play last week because I didn't.
Oh, okay.
But Will Levis at quarterback, first time head coach. Um, Part of me feels like they're going to lose one of these games, but I have a hard time saying it. So this is another one of those where I just feel it might be ugly, it might be low scoring, but I feel like the Chargers find a way to win this based on what we saw last week.
He looked Will Levis looked absolutely frightened throughout that game. He threw the game away. He had 2 interceptions. I don't think he even had 150 yards passing. He was terrible. Without Mike Vrabel, there's no Derrick Henry. I just I just think this team is not all that good. I think the defense wins them maybe a game or two, but I don't think they win this game, especially at home. I don't think the Chargers end up losing. So I've got them winning this game against the Titans. Then we move on to week 11. And this is where I kind of went back and forth. The Bengals lost, but it feels like the Bengals every year start off kind of slow. They're always like slow out the gate and then they pick up towards the end of the year and then they, work themselves into a playoff spot. And I feel like if they would have played this game in the first, 4 or 5 games, I would have gone a different direction. But it just feels like at this point, the Bengals have it figured out. They're humming. Joe Burrow's back to being Burrow, and I think the Chargers lose this game.
I I I kind of feel like the Chargers lose this game too. Um, Not because of Joe Burrow. I feel like Burrow is regressing, and I think his injuries are starting to catch up with him. But
Mm-hmm.
that Bengals defense gets after the quarterback. I think they're going to give the Chargers offensive line some fits, particularly inside. Um, I think by that time you've got T. Higgins healthy, you've got Jamar Chase back. That offense looks vastly different than it did against. I mean, let's be honest, a really good Chiefs. Now, did they play the Chiefs last week?
Mm-mm, mm-mm. No, that was the Ravens.
Oh, who did they play last week?
The Patriots,
The Patriots.
right? I
So
think.
I think that offense will look much better than it did against the Patriots last week. Um, and I just think they get their shit together by week 11. So I think the Chargers lose that one. It'll be a tough loss, I think, by the end of the season. It'll be one that really hurts. Probably a close one, but I think the Bengals win it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah. They played the Patriots lost 16-10. Okay. Next game is the Har Bowl, week 12, Monday Night Football, Jamie.
I have the Ravens winning this one. I just think where the Chargers are right now with personnel and scheme and all that, I just really feel like the Ravens are just better right now. I don't really know how else to put it. They've been together
Mhm.
longer. Their coaches have been in place longer. Their system's been in place longer. Um, and I think even though the Chargers, I think, can do some things to limit um, Lamar Jackson in the passing game, I think this is one of those games where I think the Chargers are going to make hay surprising people with their physical and mental toughness all season long. And I think this is one where they run into a team that's just better and tougher and more battle tested than they are at this point, and they wind up losing probably a close one.
Yeah, yeah. This is another team that I feel like it starts to get humming around this time too, like I talked about with the Bengals. They just, yeah. I mean, everything you're talking about, it just feels like their offense is better. Their defense is tougher. I just don't know that they win this game in prime time. I think the Chargers lose this. I don't think they get blown out. I don't think they get blown out all year, to be honest with you. I think that most games are pretty close, but I think they end up losing this one in a close one. And Yeah, and so the Chargers go on a skid here, go lose 2 in a row to the Bengals and the Ravens. Then they go on the road to Atlanta, and Kirk Cousins looks like he hit an absolute wall in week 1. I would not be surprised by this time if Michael Penix is playing, if things keep trending in that direction. But I think either way, after losing 2, I don't think Harbaugh lets them lose a third, especially not on the road against a team like Atlanta. So I got them winning this game. They end the skid here, and they beat the Falcons.
Yeah, I don't see the Falcons beating the Chargers. I think this is one of those games where the Chargers just wear out a lesser team, um, and they make it look pretty easy. So
Mhm.
I think the Chargers beat the Falcons pretty easily.
So then it gets a little bit harder. They go to Sunday Night Football. They play the Chiefs in Arrowhead. What about this one? Do they get swept by the Chiefs?
I think so. I
Yeah.
just think where they are right now in year one, I don't think they have the personnel they need to hang with them. I'm not sure that they will open up the offense enough to hang with them. And that Chiefs defense is really good, and I think they'll give the Chargers some fits. So yeah, I think the Chargers lose both games to the Chiefs, and it's just more a function of Harbaugh getting things in place, getting his people on the roster, and they're just not there yet.
Yeah, yeah, I'm with you. I think they get swept, and then playing an Arrowhead in prime time. That's going to be a real tough go to play this late in the season with that crowd. So yeah, I don't. It's just too tough of a place to play for the Chargers, and Kansas City's just a better team than they are right now. So I've got them losing here against Kansas City. Then they play the Buccaneers, and the Buccaneers I've gone back and forth on. I don't think they're an all that very good team. They were a playoff team a year ago. Um, but it feels like this might be kind of a back and forth battle here. Um, I feel like the Chargers have a little bit of a hangover from Sunday night. I'm going to say they lose this game. They're kind of let the Bucks hang around a little bit too long, get off to a slow start. Buccaneers have a good enough offense to kind of just slip right by him, and they end up pulling away and winning the game late. So I've got them losing this game in week 15.
Yeah, I think the Chargers will mostly avoid charging in terms of losing the teams that they should beat this season. But coming off of a loss to the Chiefs on Sunday night, getting swept by the Chiefs in the division, just seems like that's a spot where you could have a little bit of a letdown, and it just makes sense to me. So I think Tampa probably wins that game.
All right, so another 2-game skid here. Let's go to Broncos. They play in Mile, or no, this is at home now. They're at home now, week 16 against the Broncos.
I think this is a win. I just
Mm.
again don't think the Broncos are very good. I don't know how much they're going to develop Bo Nix in 10 weeks. Um, that defense is always going to give the Chargers problems, and from a coverage and disguise standpoint. But I think the Chargers win this game, and they probably batter the Broncos physically uh, in a way that we're not really used to seeing. I just feel like they're going to be kind of building some momentum at this point of the season, and they're going to start taking advantage of some bad teams.
Yep. Chargers building momentum. Broncos at this point are probably playing for draft picks. And I think the Chargers help them out with that, beat them pretty easily at home in week 16. And I think the Patriots in in Foxborough are probably doing about the same thing the Broncos are by week 17. They got a surprise win against the Bengals, like we were kind of talking about a little bit earlier. But they're not a good team. They don't have the quarterback thing figured out yet. And I just feel like they're just not good enough to hang with the Chargers. I've got them winning on the road in Foxborough, beating the Patriots.
This is a tough one. I think the Patriots have a pretty good defense. I think they run the ball pretty well. It's going to be cold late in the season in Foxborough. I maybe the Chargers are. I hate to say I don't know if this will happen, but this is a situation where coming off of a big win over the Broncos, week 18 with the Raiders coming up next, you could almost kind of see them looking ahead a little bit against a
Mm.
team that's maybe not playing so well and get caught off guard. I don't think Harbaugh lets that happen, And again, I'm being influenced by past seasons. It's hard not to at this point
Yeah,
after
yeah.
everything we've endured.
Oh yeah, it's trauma, man.
Um, I'm I'm gonna say the Patriots defense wins this game. I just feel like there's
Ooh.
one more loss in there somewhere.
Okay. All right. So then they finish out the season. They go to Vegas to finish up the season finale against the Las Vegas Raiders. Do they win this game?
I think they do. I think they'll be pissed coming off of a loss in my scenario to the Patriots.
Mm,
And I don't think it matters who the quarterback is for the Raiders, whether it's Aiden O'Connell or whether it's Gardner Minshew. I just don't think they're very good at the quarterback position. And I think the Chargers will go into that game knowing that they can push the Raiders around a little bit based on the way that week one game finished. And
mhm,
the Chargers will be a much better football team going into that game than they were at the beginning of the season. They'll have more things dialed in. They'll be kind of building towards a playoff run, hopefully. So I think the Chargers win that game and they wind up going 4-2 in the division with while getting swept by the Chiefs.
mhm. Yeah, I've got them winning this game as well. I feel like not only do they know that that they manhandled the Raiders late in week one, but I don't feel like they will forget them trying to fight them after the whistle towards the end of that game. With all the bad blood that happened in week one and all the talking and all the kind of cheap shots they were getting throughout that game, and then trying to fight after that 2-point conversion, that sticks with the team. And I think at this point, they're ready to move on to the playoffs and they want to put a little exclamation point on the season, and they end up beating the Raiders. So that means Jamie has them going 10-7. I've got them going 11-6. So it feels like we're talking wild card at that point.
I think so. I think what you're really looking at from the Chargers this year is a team that is going to surprise people with how much more physically and mentally tough they are, and they're going to catch teams off guard, especially um, early in the season, with the way they finish games physically. Um, and I think they won 5 games last year. You're looking at a head coach in Harbaugh who's probably going to win. Him and his staff are probably going to win 3 to 4 games just by being who they are and doing what they do.
Mm-hmm.
And then there will be a couple of games where Herbert goes off and overcomes some mistakes, maybe some coaching blunders on the offensive side or whatever, and just wills them to wins.
Uh,
Um, I think what we're not looking at anymore is the coach costing them wins and the
mm,
quarterback having to make up for those.
right.
I think they have a coach quarterback situation right now where both elements there are going to win a couple games, a handful of games that they maybe shouldn't win, just because of how good they are and what they're doing behind the scenes.
All right. So that is it for the record prediction. Jamie's got him going 10-7. I've got him going 11-6. So we're talking playoffs, at least on the verge there. All right. Our next question is from Attila. Is that how we pronounce it? I don't know how to pronounce it. I just
Attila.
always see it. Attila? Attila in the Discord. Attila from a distance. Who are your favorite non-Charger players? One offense, one defense, one special teams, please. Jamie, who's a non-Charger player that you really enjoy watching right now?
Well, one offensive player that I love watching, and I think those of you who are in the Discord are going to know where I'm going with this. It's Brandon Ayuk with the 49ers.
Mm,
He is somebody who, when the Chargers drafted Herbert and then traded up for Kenneth Murray later in that same first round, I thought they were trading up for Ayuk.
mhm.
That's what I wanted in the worst way, only because it made sense to bring in a new receiver for your new quarterback and start rebuilding that connection. But Ayuk is a guy who makes plays at all levels of the field. You can throw him the screens, you can throw him the slants, the digs, the posts. You can get him downfield. He makes people miss in the open field. He makes physical catches, makes plays in the red zone. He's just a playmaker, and he's dynamic, and he's fun to watch. And it doesn't hurt that he's a Sun Devil, but the kid can play. I love him. I would love for him to be a Charger at some point, even though I'm sure it won't happen. But That's my offensive guy. What about you?
Not with that new deal. He's going to be with the 49ers for a while, most likely. Offensively, I mean, I don't know if this is a cop out because he's so good, but Justin Jefferson is just, I mean, he's dynamic. I love watching him every time he touches the field. It's much better when he has a quarterback throwing him with football that's worth a damn. But Justin Jefferson is just electric. So is CeeDee Lamb. I mean, I just love those wide receivers that are just better than everybody else. There's just a fun element to a real electric wide receiver. So Ayuk's a good one. CeeDee Lamb's a good one. Justin Jefferson's a good one. I love watching JJ. Defensively, the first one that comes to mind is Micah Parsons. You know, he just feels like one of the best chess pieces in the league. There's not a lot of football players. I was talking about electric, but there's not a lot of football players that are just stand out athletically on the defensive end more than like a Micah Parsons. Like there's a lot of really, really, really good football players. You're talking about the best of the best in the world. When you have a guy like Micah Parsons, who's just better than everybody else on the football field almost every Sunday, those guys are really fun. Like Aaron Donald was like a magician. He was magic, a unicorn. I loved watching Aaron Donald play. He's retired now, but Micah Parsons is one of those dudes. What about you defensively?
That's who I was going to say was Micah Parsons, but since you took him, I'll go a different route.
Okay.
I'll go away from the edge rushers and I'll say Fred Warner. Just because he's such a good athlete. He's a safety turn linebacker. He can get to the quarterback. He stops the run. He is amazing and covers ridiculous amounts of space in the passing game. He can play zone coverage. He can play man coverage. He can practically be back there as a safety in a lot of ways with the way he covers ground. He has the ball skills to make plays on the football when it's thrown to him. He's a sure tackler. He's like the prototype of the modern day NFL linebacker right now. He just does everything so well. And he's really smart and reads the quarterback and reads the offense extremely well to boot. He's just one of those defensive linchpins. You have him in the middle of your defense is going to be really good.
Yeah. Yeah. Fred Warner is one of my favorites too. I went back and forth on Parsons and Warner in my head as I was reading this question, but yeah. And one of my early claims to fame is being high on Fred Warner in the draft process. And I will always claim that. All right. Special teams, Jamie.
We're talking special teams here. Okay.
It's in italics. I don't think he's being sarcastic.
Let's see. I'll just say Justin Tucker because he's so money as a kicker.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't want to pick a punter or a kicker. That's just boring. Can I say Cordarrelle Patterson, but like in his prime? He was so much fun. I mean, he's not right now, but maybe that doesn't count. How about what about Kevontae Turpin, the Cowboys speedy returner? I'll pick him. And look at this is funny. J. Alex Keith. So basically Jamie wants the 49ers. And then apparently I want the Cowboys. I did CeeDee Lamb, Micah Parsons, and Turpin. That's funny. Okay. All right. Last question, and then we'll get to the chat. So chat, if you got questions, we're going to wrap up here pretty soon. But when you're ready, send those questions in, and we'll kind of do a rapid fire. Last one here, Jamie, and it's a goofy one from Awake Ramos. Who do you think is the most likely player to have not enjoyed board games before the team bonding, but now loves them and wants to play them constantly? Who, because the Chargers went and traveled. They did a little team bonding this week. They're probably going to stay there, they said.
They are. They're going to stay there all week. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'll say I'll go with Derwin.
Okay.
I don't have a reason. I'll just say Derwin.
Oh, you're just saying you're just saying an answer just to get this over with. I feel like Deion Henley is young enough to think that board games are corny, but he's also outgoing and goofy enough to realize that he's probably really good at them. And he probably, there's that angst in him because he's a young kid and he's gonna be like, man, I don't want to play board games, and then eventually he's gonna be like acting out charades in front of everybody and being like the team leader on his charades team. So I'll say Henley. All right, let's move on to questions from our friends in the chat. I'm going to scroll up here, and I'll start from the beginning. What's the excitement meter from Rye Guy TV if the Chargers beat the Chiefs and they're 4-0 going to the bye? Do we get a bolt up from Jamie?
You're not going to get another bolt up for a long time. It's probably going to require like a Super Bowl win or back-to-back Super Bowl wins. So
not even a Super Bowl will get you a bolt up.
Probably a Super Bowl,
okay.
but
Okay.
It took Harbaugh to get the first one. It's going to take a lot to get the second one.
Yeah, they just don't go willy-nilly. But how excited are you if they beat the Chargers or beat the Chiefs in Week 4?
I mean, if they start 4-0 and beat the Chiefs, I think we're all going apeshit.
Yeah.
Right? We're all losing our minds. They're off to a hot start. They beat the best team in football. Oh my God, we're going 20-0 and winning the Super Bowl is probably the excitement level for most people.
But what about level-headed gentlemen like us?
I think we're all still excited, and we're all just waiting for, the Bosa injury shoe to drop, or that whatever.
Yeah,
I mean, again, this is old. This is old Chargers influencing. We're all super excited. Yeah, I'm projecting here. We're all super excited. We're all having fun. It's thrilling. It's a great way to start the season. But they're going to have their ups and downs in a long season.
Sure, just like everybody. And I'm really excited. I think there is some tempered expectations. Oh, I mean, I'm not over the moon. I'm really excited, but I'm not over the moon because I know it's only the first 4 games of the season, and they've got 13 more to go. So it just feels like I don't know that they really. Like, I'm excited, but I'm not jumping for joy. It's a great start. It'd be an unbelievable start, especially when you beat the Chiefs and you do it early on. It'd be great, but I'm not jumping up for joy yet. Next question is from Jonathan Stoddard. If the Chargers make the playoffs, does Harbaugh deserve Coach of the Year, or was the positive regression for this team baked in?
I never understood that phrase positive regression, because regression means you're moving back and yet it's positive. So
positive,
those two words don't really go together. But but I think, I mean, if they make the playoffs, I would say if they win 10 or more games and make the playoffs, unless something crazy is going on in the NFL, I would say there's a really good chance that Harbaugh is very much in the discussion for Coach of the Year, because that means he's completely turned the culture in one season. He's taken this team of guys who were just so soft for the last 10 years and made them physically and mentally tough. And I don't see how he's not in the conversation.
I mean, we all saw through 4 quarters how much different this team is under Harbaugh than it's been for years under Lynn and McCoy and Staley. And if you take a team that went, would they have 5 wins last year? 5-12, and then double their win total, take them to the playoffs. I mean, people are going to start taking notice real early. I mean, there's already a spotlight on Harbaugh, but it seems like the pundits are starting to catch on a little bit. Like, this is a totally different team. Like, look at what Harbaugh did, how they dragged him into deep waters late in that game. I mean, everybody's talking about it. If they can get the double-digit wins, they're going 10 and 11 wins this season. I think he's odds-on favorite to win that Coach of the Year, unless the Panthers turn it around and they make the playoffs or something. It's got to be just a astronomical change in another team to beat out a Harbaugh if the Chargers get 10, 11 wins and they start to make the playoffs.
Yeah, and I would say, looking at this schedule, like, you almost have to talk yourself into them not winning 11 or 12 games. The way the schedule sets up, it is not difficult to see them winning 11 or 12 games if everything goes absolutely perfectly.
Yeah.
Will it go perfectly in year 1? Probably not.
Yeah.
But it's not hard to see it happening.
No.
You win the games you're supposed to win. You surprise a couple teams like they did the Raiders last week and pull out a game or two late. And now you're talking about, 10, 11, 12 wins instead of 5 or 6 wins. So
Yeah.
it's a huge difference.
Yeah, and we're leaning towards, we're projecting onto our, Charger fandom from
We're
decades and
scarred.
decades. We are. I mean, really. I mean, it's baked in trauma. And so when you start looking at, we didn't give them any wins where teams they could have upset, like the Ravens or the Chiefs or the Bengals. We gave them losses, but then yet we're giving them, 1 or 2 losses on teams they should beat, like the Cardinals or the Buccaneers or the Saints or whatever it was. So, on paper, this feels like a 10, 11, 12 win team. So, I absolutely agree. It feels like a team that could really ascend if everything falls right. And on paper, they do look like a 10 to 12 win team.
Yeah.
So, yeah, go ahead. Do you have something
No.
else? Oh, okay.
No.
All right. Next up from Junius Lim. Do you think, or do you guys still think the Chargers should have taken Malik Nabers at 5 overall with how good Joe Alt played?
Alt was great. We saw how average the wide receiver room was week 1. Granted, it's week 1. It's a small sample
Mhm.
size. I don't think you could have gone wrong with either one of them at this point.
Mhm.
And again, it's a small sample size for Alt too. It's
Yeah.
going to be a long season. He's going to see a lot of elite pass rushers. So I will say my grade on that is incomplete. Alt looks amazing. But man, the things they could have done with this offense with Herbert throwing to Nabers
Mhm.
are just mind-boggling.
Yeah. Yeah, because then, you're starting to think in your head, like, well, then who's at right tackle if they take Neighbors? Is it still Pipkins? I mean, are we talking like Pipkins, Salyer, and Neighbors, or Alt and McConkey? I mean, it feels like you take the second option over that, but also you're not taking into account what they would have done in the second round if they hadn't taken McConkey. So it's tough to play this game after 1 week and one single football game. It's hard. It's not a cop out. It just feels like there's no way to really make that decision yet. I mean,
We
how
don't have
good?
enough. We don't have
No.
enough information on either one of them.
Yeah. It's hard. It's hard because there's just not enough data, not enough tape. And Neighbors looks pretty good. And how good would he have been with Herbert opposed to Daniel Jones? You would have thought it.
If you look good with Daniel Jones throwing you, you're pretty fucking good.
Absolutely. Next up from Casey Lismere. I don't know. Casey L. Will Joe Ortiz bring in help free agent wise for the interior offensive line during the season? If so, who are some viable options? That is not a list I've looked at. But Jamie, do you think that they could bring in somebody to help out?
I mean, I think they could, but they've got money invested in Pipkins. They just brought Bozeman in to play center, and they've got Hymus behind him and McFadden behind him potentially. And they've got a first round pick invested in Zion. So granted, those picks are made by a previous regime, but Harbaugh seems pretty bought in on Pipkins at this point. So I would say if they bring somebody in, it's going to be to add depth. I don't know that it'll be to, bring in a starter necessarily. I think they're looking at developing the guys they have out there. So I would say probably not.
And then when you look at this list, you just kind of shake your head a little bit. I don't know if you can you see that?
Can you make it bigger? There we go.
I mean, this list is just here. I'm gonna take Casey's name off. I mean, this is brutal. Vaitai, who's good at one point. I mean, I didn't even know Justin Pugh is still playing football. Trey Turner, Matt Filer. I mean, this is ridiculous. Lael Collins seems like a name, but man, he hasn't been able to stick anywhere. They're just there's nobody here, Jamie.
What about the centers?
All right. There you go. Oh, Scott Quessenberry. I thought Ricky Stromberg got picked up. This feels like an out-of-date list.
It might be.
But anyway, still there's nobody there.
Yeah.
So yeah, you're talking depth at that point. All right. Let's go. What player on this current roster that's on a 1-year deal do you see most likely re-signing with the team next offseason? Oh boy, now we got to go in our memory banks and think about who signed a 1-year deal.
I believe Dobbins signed a 1-year deal, if I'm not mistaken. I think Chark signed a 1-year deal. I'm guessing Bozeman probably signed a 1-year deal.
Yeah,
I
I'm
don't.
having a hard time coming up with those names. Yeah,
Yeah,
J.K. Dobbins definitely signed a 1-year deal.
yeah.
I could definitely see him back.
I'm pretty sure Chark and Dobbins both did.
Those are two
I'm
good answers
I'm
for this.
thinking Dye signed a 1-year deal as well. I think Perriman probably signed a 1-year deal.
Fulton, did Christian Fulton do 1-year deal?
I think he might have.
Yeah.
And then Ford, did he sign a 1 or 2-year deal?
I thought it was 2, but maybe I'm mistaken. I'm gonna look it up. But those are all, I mean, pretty good names.
I
Nope,
would
1 year.
say if any of those guys are going to return, you said Ford signed a 1-year deal.
Yep.
If any of those guys are going to return, I would say if Ford continues to play well, I would say they will do probably what they can to re-sign him. And based on the shape the secondary is in next year, with Zont being a free agent, I would say Fulton, if he plays really well, he's probably coming back. And then the other one, I would say maybe one of Chark or Dobbins potentially. But remember, this whole play with these 1-year deals, this is all about comp picks. So if these guys play well and somebody wants to sign them to multi-year deals, they're probably going to let them go because that's how you get those comp picks.
Yeah.
So,
All right, Jamie, I know you got to get going. Last one here. Any interest in Amari Cooper? Rumors out of Cleveland say if they fall out of playoff contention, he would be the first to go. Would you trade for Amari Cooper?
how's he been the last couple of years?
He was good last year. He signed a 4-year deal. I'm trying to look up his but he'd be a free agent next year. So you're basically signing a 1-year deal.
Well, you're again comp pick,
yeah,
potentially.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, depending on where the wide receiver room is mid-season, I would say that's certainly something you at least explore to see if you can put it together, depending on the price. I think that's one room, the wide receiver room, where they're probably going to have to be looking to add to it at some point.
Yeah. He had 1,100 yards in 2022, 1,250 in 2023. So back-to-back 1,000-yard seasons.
All right. Yeah. I mean, that's a nice asset to have. And he seems like it's easy enough to slot him in as the X. So,
yeah. Mm-hmm. Pretty good fit. All right, guys. Thanks so much for joining us. Appreciate all the questions. Sorry we weren't able to get to all of them, but send them in next week and we will get to them. So thanks for joining us and we will see you next time.
Thanks, everybody.